Hello everyone, welcome to Boom Children's Ministries, and today we are going to talk about registration, so stay put. Alright, today we are going to talk about the important subject of registration. Now, I know that this is not exactly a subject that is as fun as, say, songs or hand motions and noise and things like that. But what you need to understand is that the back end of your children's ministry is just as important as the front end of your children's ministry. Let me explain that in a little bit better of a way. At a restaurant, if you go to, say, my favorite's Panera Bread. If you go to Panera Bread, you see a lot of stuff going on the front end. You see the cashier, you see the people making the sandwiches. They're technically the front end. But what you don't see is the back end. You don't see behind the wall where they're washing the dishes or where they're getting other things ready. And now I've spent some time working the back end. In fact, when I worked at Panera Bread, I spent a good chunk, most of my time in the back end before I became a cashier. What happens back there is just as important as what happens in the front. So to have a successful children's ministry, you need to be able to have a organized back end of your children's ministry. Okay, so it's not all fun and games. It's not all songs. It's not all lessons. There is paperwork. There is keeping track of things. That's important if you want to have an organized, successful children's ministry. Okay, so one of those back end type things is registration. Registration is not the same thing as keeping attendance. Now, we'll talk about keeping attendance in a later date because that's important too. But registration is a completely different thing. Registration is this. When a kid comes to your program for the first time, you pull them aside and you ask them for their name, their age, their address, and their phone number, or even if, or in addition, their birthday. You will want to know their parents' names as well. There's really a whole list of things that you want to have. Their name, their birthday, their age, their address, their phone number, their parents' names, and that's a pretty good place to start. You want to collect that information from those kids. And what happens from that point is that information gets taken, and then that kid gets placed onto your attendance list, which we'll talk about some other time. We're not going to talk about that right now. But you collect that information. Now, the kids are most of the time not going to have that information themselves. So you're going to want to talk to the parents about getting that information. So this gives you a point of contact with the parents the very first time they come to church. And most parents are completely understanding of why you're doing this. So why are you doing this? That's the question for now. Why do we do this thing called registration? Well, here's a few reasons why. First, collecting this information at registration gives the church potential ways to communicate with parents in the future. So let me give you an example of this. For Vacation Bible School, we collected the names of the children, their parents, their address, their phone numbers. And then a few weeks later, I preached a series on the family. So what I did was I took that information about the parents, and I wrote them a letter inviting them to come to church. This is really targeted advertising, targeted letters sent out. So really, that registration information, you're going to keep that yourself as the teacher, but also you're going to send that to the church office because that information is very valuable to the church office itself. So that's the first reason. The second reason for having this time of registration is to be able to reach out to parents just in case there's some sort of emergency. Now, this is the big reason that we give to parents for doing this. Suppose, for instance, little Johnny, you do happen to do a gym time. I've talked about this before. I'm not a big fan of it, but whatever. Suppose you do. Suppose you have a gym time and little Johnny gets hurt. If you don't have registration information, you don't have a way to reach out to the parent except for barging into the Sunday morning service, which can sometimes be awkward. It can sometimes be difficult to get into there because of where the parent is sitting. But if you have registration information, all you have to do is look at their phone number, give them a text message or a phone call to reach out to that parent just in case of an emergency. And really, there's more emergencies than simply a kid got hurt in the gym. If the kid is young enough, hey, a kid went in his pants, or a kid is having a panic attack, or a kid is missing mommy and he's freaking out, or whatever, or disciplinary issue. Either way, there are many reasons why you need to be able to reach out to the parents. And it's not very practical to just walk into a church service and look for the parents. Having their registration information is vital to being able to do that. The third reason, and this is a extra touch type of reason, an extra touch of kindness. If you have these kids' registration information, if you know these kids' birthday, maybe one of your workers can be in charge of sending out birthday cards every year. So they see, well, little Susie, her birthday is this week, so I'm going to write her a birthday card. And hey, since I have her birthday and since I have her address, I can mail that to her. And what kid doesn't like getting mail? Right? So you can send birthday cards. You can send get well soon cards if you know that a kid is sick. If you know that a family hasn't been to church in the last few weeks and you don't know where they've been, you can go visit the family and see where they've been. Either way, there's a whole lot of extra touch reasons in order that help with registration. And then lastly, and this one is not as fun of one and one that we don't like to talk about quite as much, but that's for the reason of accountability. Suppose for some reason you were accused or your children's ministry was accused of doing something inappropriate. Sometimes, and this isn't all the time, in fact, it's not even most of the time, but sometimes people will lie to take advantage of a church, and especially a church that lacks 1, discipline, and 2, organization. So suppose you have someone that accuses your children's ministry of something inappropriate. Sometimes you can go back into your records and find out, hey, wait a minute, this kid was never even a part of our children's program. Now, you cannot make that statement if you don't have accurate records, if you don't have good, consistent records. Again, this is why we need to be organized. So a good way to be hold yourself accountable when it comes to things that might happen is by keeping accurate, organized records with names, parents' names, phone numbers, addresses, you name it. So registration is an important part of children's ministry. Here's my suggestion, and then I'm done. Quick video today. Here's my suggestion. If you are the main teacher of your children's program, I would suggest you do not lead up the registration time. Now, you're responsible for it. You're the big boss, right? But I would suggest that you find another helper and that you get them to take charge of registration. Basically, you're delegating, giving someone else a key role and taking that off your shoulders so that instead of you caring about registration so much, you're focusing on talking to the kids, getting to know them a little bit while the program is getting started. Of course, you have to do your last minute things before the program gets started anyway. So loop that off to another worker, maybe even a teen helper to get that done. But either way, it has to get done. Registration has to get done in order to have an organized and an effective children's ministry.